So, this story happened about 3 years ago, and I was feeling kind of stuck. I had my job I'd go to every day. I went to bed at about the same time every night. But before I went to bed, I would always read a book of some kind. Usually sci-fi, fantasy, adventure stories. And I had just gotten from the library Kontiki. Now, I don't know if you guys know Kontiki, maybe you saw the movie, but Kontiki is the story of Thor Heyerdahl. When he was 33, he floated on a raft from South America all the way to the South Pacific Islands on this balsa wood raft, 1,400 miles, and that was his journey when he was 33. And I really started to think that maybe I should plan an adventure of my own. So I didn't have a lot of money. I wasn't at the coast. He was part of an adventure club, actually. So I thought there must be an adventure right here in Portland that would be as epic. I didn't have a lot of time. I had like a weekend. So I thought about it and I thought, well, where would I go? What would be the most exciting place to go? And Multnomah Falls came to me. I would go to Multnomah Falls, but anyone can go to Multnomah Falls, right? So I would go there in a more simple way, the way Thor Heyerdahl had made his raft out of balsa wood and rope, and he had a little shack on there, and he had his provisions. I would go by foot. So I thought, I hatched this plan of walking to Multnomah Falls from the middle of Portland, and I thought, to make it even better, what I'll do is I'll start walking at night. Well, first I consulted Google. I was like, how long, Google, will it take me to walk? You know how Google tells you how long it takes? How long will it take me to walk from MLK in Portland to Multnomah Falls? And Google thinks a second and is like 11 hours. So I thought, well, it's about 31 miles, which maybe should have given me pause because that's like more than a marathon. But I'm like, it's walking. I walk all the time. I can walk. Everyone can walk. So I decided to make it even more fun. What I would do is I would start at night. I would start at 9 p.m. and I would walk all through the night. I would arrive at Multnomah Falls, following Google's pace, at 8 a.m. and I would get pancakes at the lodge, which I hear are amazing, but I had never gotten. So I found a partner in crime. My boyfriend at the time agreed to do this with me, and I did a little bit of research. What would we need for our walk? Walkers, real walkers who walk great distances, they bring an extra pair of shoes because your feet might get swollen. And so we brought an extra pair of shoes. And they also say, train, do some training. And I was like, I don't need to train, I can walk. Like it was nothing, right? Like you people standing, it's like easy to just stand the whole time that you're here. It actually is harder than you think to walk that far. So we also brought some snacks and some CBD candy, which comes in later. So we had our pack and we started off at 9 p.m. We stopped at a bar and we got a shot of whiskey and I took a picture. And I thought every 2 hours I will take a picture and we'll kind of see how this progresses. And we started walking. The first 2 hours were great. They were really good. I mean, we were walking down Sandy. So Sandy is an interesting road to walk down, and it becomes more interesting the further you get down. I thought maybe we would have interesting encounters with people, but people had things to do. They weren't talking to us. We were just another person walking. They didn't know we were in the middle of an epic quest to Multnomah Falls. They were just like going to the movies. They were actually going to pot stores, which are every 2 blocks on Sandy. There's a pot store. How are people really smoking that much pot? It seems like they are. So we walked and walked for 2 hours. We walked for 2 hours more. We were at I-205, and I really had to go to the bathroom. And I just really needed to go, and it was kind of an adventure. So I peed by I-205 in some bushes, which felt kind of adventuresome, but kind of not. I mean, it also felt like I was peeing by the side of the interstate in a place that other people I think had peed at. But, you know, if you think about it, really, where have people not peed? Peed, we were on our way again. And I kept thinking, surely we'll get to the forest soon. And every once in a while I would check the Google Maps. And we were not going the pace of Google Maps, which I think Google Maps assumes that you're a robot. That it actually breaks down to 2.8 miles an hour, which we were not doing at all. And this was still when we were fairly fresh. It was like midnight, but we still felt kind of fresh. I had imagined that the walk would be mostly in the forest, that we would be surrounded by, I mean, the moon was full, which was nice, but we'd be surrounded by trees, maybe we'd see owls, and it would be that good smell of the forest. But it was the smell of the interstate, and it was the smell of like people who had peed by the interstate, myself included. We kept walking. We entered more suburbish Sandy, which was a mixture. Like we passed a potato patch, and then there was like a subdivision and a plant pantry all together. We came to some interesting motels. One of the motels was advertising dial-up phone service, which I thought, wow, that's like a certain portion of the population needs to use the phone at this place. It was getting later. It was like maybe 1 or 2, and we stopped for a snack. This was our undoing, stopping for a snack. Do not stop walking once you've started. And we were getting pretty tired, but we stopped for a snack and we ate a little. And as we were eating, it began to rain. And I live in Portland. I know that it rains here, but I had not brought any rain gear at all. My provisions. We were like snacking away on crackers as we were being drenched by the rain. And the combination of like not walking and the cold rain, and just that we had been walking for so long, my friend's legs seized up in this way that he could not bend his knees anymore. And so we did some stretching. We changed shoes also, which I thought might help. So we changed shoes. I tried to get him to stretch. There was no stretching in. He could not walk by bending his knees anymore. He could only walk, and I'm just going to demonstrate. Kind of like that. That was how he could walk. I know. And I was like, I stopped and looked at Google Maps again. We were maybe a third of the way to Multnomah Falls. We were in Gresham. And it was like 2 in the morning. We were delirious. He was like shuffling along with his legs the best he could. I stopped and I looked at there was a bus stop, and I thought, well, maybe, no, the buses were coming at 6 a.m., not before. I suppose we could have called a taxi in retrospect. It would have been so smart. But instead, I thought, we both agreed we weren't going to make it to Multnomah Falls, obviously. And the weird thing about it is, in my mind, not only did we make it to Multnomah Falls, we got there a little early. And we waited, because we were faster than Google Maps, because we were such great walkers. We waited for the pancake shop to open. We ate pancakes, and then we walked back. So, it's hubris, human hubris. So, fortunately, I had my phone. I forgot to tell you the part. Well, if I have time, I'll get to that. I had my phone. I had been taking pictures. This was the expression of the picture when he could not walk, and we realized we were not going to make it to Multnomah Falls. I was so tired. I checked my phone. Fortunately, the Gresham Transit Center was only 7 miles away. So I thought, well, maybe we can make it to the Gresham Transit Center and quickly take the Max back to Portland. So we continued. Now, after you've been walking for a long time, we started eating the CBD candy also. We were in pain, It does start to hurt when you walk that long. And after you've been walking for such a long time, you kind of begin to fall asleep as you walk. It's like you're walking and then you're kind of hallucinating, partially the candy. But I thought I saw a great white owl swoop down, and it landed on a telephone pole, and it swooped away. And I saw a house with a light on, and I thought, I wish I lived in that house. If I lived in that house, I would go inside and I would lay down, because all that I wanted to do was to lay down, but it was raining. I even thought maybe we should just lay down here in this potato field. It would be better than walking. We'd be wet, but at least we would be laying down. But we kept going. We arrived at the Gresham Transit Center at 4 a.m. Having walked 11 miles. 11 miles at half the speed that Google thinks you can walk. I think we progressively went slower, and the shuffling really slowed us down. No offense to my friend. So we arrived at the Gresham Transit Center. We had about a half-hour wait for the Max to come. We watched someone throw up. Some people came who were going to work in uniforms. It was like that time of morning that you might be just waking up to go to work if you had an early shift. And we were just sitting, waiting, hoping to get back home. And the Max came and we got on. And I have never felt so privileged to sit on the Max, to have it moving and you don't have to make it move. It just moves itself. And I want to just take a pause here because we never made it to Multnomah Falls, but I think you should know that Thor Heyerdahl did not completely make it to his destination. He crashed onto a coral reef, and they stayed on the coral reef for a week trying to repair their raft, which, by the way, rafting is way easier than walking. Way easier. You lay on the raft, apparently the fish just flung themselves onto the raft, and they would eat the fish. And they were playing cards in all the pictures, and they were like throwing sharks on board because they were getting bored laying on the raft this whole time. Anyways, he himself did not make it. He had to be rescued by some islanders once some flotsam came ashore on their island. So we were rescued by the Max, which was like a great dragon of salvation that came to us and lifted us up so we no longer had to walk. My friend immediately fell asleep. And I stayed awake because someone had to. Otherwise, where would we end up? We'd probably end up at Beaverton, which was not our destination. So we got off. We had to walk a little ways to take the bus. Shuffling. The bus came, and they lowered. You know how they lower the bus if you read that? They saw us coming, and they lowered the bus. We got on. And we had a little ways to walk/shuffle back to my house. And my friend was there. He was house sitting because I was going to be gone for like 2 days on this epic journey. He was house sitting, so we lay down on the futon, which normally is so uncomfortable. But that futon was like clouds of heaven. I lay down on that futon and I just thanked my stars that I could lay. Just to be horizontal, such a gift. You don't think about it, but it's a huge gift. And you people know who've been standing. I lay down, and someone snapped their fingers. I was out cold. I did not wake up until much later in the next day. Now, what was the moral of all of this? You might ask yourself. The flesh is weak, but the spirit is willing. Or there's no place like home. Although, I don't really like that one because really wasn't the Wizard of Oz kind of cooler before she went home? I mean, the black and white, wasn't it cooler and then she wanted to go back for some reason? I would say if you are, whether or not you're a failure or a victor at a quest, which you give yourself in this case, when I gave myself, perhaps it's not about whether or not you succeeded. I would say we succeeded in a way, but the journey. And returning home to find it different, quite different than when we left it. Much more difficult to get around by foot than I thought originally. And you know, they talk about the Oregon Trail. I'm going to just start talking about people traveling. You think it's not that big of a deal to travel through the world. And I do think that I take for granted a few things, and my body included. I was sore for days afterwards. But I was grateful for the experience and for seeing the things I saw. But most of all, grateful that it was over. The end.